Okay. How's everybody doing? Are we good? Okay. We're going to dive into the word here for a second, if that's cool. For the next 3 weeks, we are going to be doing teaching from here. So no longer Luke on the stage for 3 weeks. We're just going to be here, local, right in front of you. And also, this video is going to our Vicksburg campus. Vicksburg is in like Kalamazoo area. So can we say hi to the Vicksburg people? Hello. Hi. Thank you. I'm sure they'll appreciate that a lot. Okay. There we go. Nice to meet you. Awesome. I have to admit to you guys, I have to be vulnerable for a second. When I was in 6th grade, how many 6th graders do we have here? Okay. Wow. A lot. I had a massive crush on a girl. Massive. Her name, wait for it. Her name was Victoria. Can't you hear it? Victoria. But honestly, having a crush on someone is kind of weird. It is. Because what happens is you start thinking about them like way too much. Like I remember recess, like she loved playing soccer. So I was like, I love soccer now. I am Cristiano Ronaldo. I know him. I was just all about it because I was like, hey, I want to make sure that this girl, has my attention. Something like that. Or like you would be picking like teams for like sports at like gym and like it was going every other. So I was like counting the line to make sure we were on the same team at gym class and stuff. Like that's just like, it's weird. There are thoughts that are getting taken over by this person. And so I played hockey. I didn't like soccer. Okay? I was doing things intentionally to set myself up to like be near her, to make sure like she knew I was listening to her. And that's just kind of how we work like when we have a crush on somebody. And so for this upcoming teaching, I want to talk about like prayer a little bit. And don't worry, I'm not going to tell you to have a crush on Jesus, okay? But what I am talking about is there is something about prayer which involves us taking our attention and giving it to Jesus. Because we're going to be talking about for the next 3 weeks how Jesus is the Prince of Peace. That means that he is the author, the creator, the director, the giver of peace itself. He gives peace. And the best way that we can do that is to encounter the person who does that. And the best way that we can encounter Jesus is through prayer. And I've been realizing something lately. It's that prayer has a lot to do with our attention. I think a lot of times we can think of prayer as like talking or things, but I want to give you just a very simple definition of what prayer is. And all it is placing our thoughts on Jesus. So in order to do this, I'm going to just take a look at this story that we just read about Mary and Martha. And we're going to learn some tangible ways of like, what does it mean to pray? What does it mean to focus our thoughts on Jesus? And so we're going to go right into it, guys. Okay, so right into verses 39 and 40, we see Mary and Jesus entering Martha's house. Okay, this is the sister of Mary, and Jesus enters in with his disciples. And this is what we see here. It says this. It says, she had a sister called Mary who sat at the Lord's feet, listening to what he said. But Martha was distracted by all the preparations that had to be made. So here we see two very different versions of what it looks like to be with Jesus. And one thing that I've noticed about this story is oh, sorry, guys. My bad. One thing I noticed is distraction has a ton to do with prayer. Like imagine if this was how I preached the whole time. Every time I saw a piece of candy, every time like my phone buzzed like in my pocket. Now it's really hard to talk because I was really dusty and I'm distracted. But imagine like if I was up here and everything just caught my attention and I was able to just give myself away to whatever was, around me, I wouldn't get anything done. I wouldn't be able to talk to you guys. I wouldn't have much to be able to say. But how much for us, and I know this is for me too, is that kind of what like our time with Jesus looks like? Like it's, yes, I'm trying to set aside some time, but at the same time, like anything that wants to have my attention can have it. And so for the past few months, I have been feeling like I don't really know how to pray super well. And so I've been kind of diving in of like, what does that look like? I've been reading books and just being like, I need to get better at this, definitely. And there's one thing that I've found as I'm like kind of digging through this that has to happen. And it is that prayer requires a removal of our distractions and a giving of our attention. And so Mary shows us lots of ways of how we can do that. And I found 3 ways that Mary in this story has placed her attention on Jesus. And so we're going to go through 3 ways. And they all start with P because we're talking about prayer and the Prince of Peace. So it has to be P. So first P, for you note takers out there, is place. The first thing we notice in this story is where everybody's at. We're told that the disciples and Jesus are in Martha's house. We're told that Mary is sitting at Jesus' feet. We are told that Martha is off doing something else, so not with Jesus. When we begin to give our attention to Jesus, we need to understand one thing, first and foremost, that he is someone who is able, that we are able to give our attention to, which means that he is here with us. Mary did what we all need to do, and that is placing yourself in a spot knowing that Jesus is there. The Bible tells us that we can go to the highest mountain, the highest one ever created, and God will still be there. Or we can go to the deepest and darkest valley, and God will be there. Meaning, God is everywhere. God is in this room right now. And in order to take our time and give our attention to God, we first need to understand that he's where we are. He's here. And so when we take time to think about Jesus, we should be able to start it with something like this, like, Jesus, you are here. You are with me. This is a way of putting ourselves in a place where Jesus is. And so we see Mary put herself in this place where Jesus is. But there's also a way that she approaches Jesus. So our second P about prayer is posture. Right after we are told that Mary is with Jesus, we're told what she's doing. So in verse 39 of our story, we are told that she is sitting at Jesus' feet. And not only that, she is listening to what he said. During this entire story, Mary is like the hero, but she doesn't say a single word. She doesn't say one word during this entire story. But what she is doing is she's putting herself in a place, she is seated, she is quiet, and she is open to what God has for her. Have any of you guys heard of Mother Teresa? Anyone ever heard of Mother Teresa? Okay. Wow, surprised. Okay, Mother Teresa was a Catholic nun and a missionary, and she spent her entire life caring for the sick. That's all she did. She gave up everything to Jesus to care for the sick. And while she was getting older, she got pretty famous. And so she's on TV with this interview with CBS, and this guy asked Mother Teresa, when you pray, what do you say? And she answers, nothing. I listen. So the guy is like, okay, well, if you're listening, then, okay, when you pray, what does God say? And she looks at him, she smiles, she says, he listens. See, I think so often we can think of prayer as having this list of things that we need to bring to God. We got to have this whole script written out, and it makes sense. Like if I asked you guys to come up here and handed you the mic to pray, it'd be a little weird if you just sat there and didn't say a word. We'd be a little concerned. But what if that is only a piece of what prayer is? What if the priority of our prayer is allowing our thoughts to be on Jesus? What if that was it first and foremost? And so finally, we're going to go into the main theme of this story, the main difference between Mary and Martha, and that is our final P word, and that is priority. You see, Martha opened her home to Jesus. She was planning on sitting with him, but it was as if she opened the door and she said, Jesus, thank you so much for coming in. I'll be with you in just a minute. That's what she does. And the reason that she does this is because she believed that she needed to be prepared to be with Jesus. She thought, I got to get the house in order to be with him. I got to get cleaned up a little bit in order to be with Jesus. But what Mary looked at, Mary saw that the number one place she needed to be, the number one priority that she had on her to-do list was to be with Jesus. And let's look at this. Look at Jesus' response to Martha. So Martha's like, Jesus, do you see this? Mary isn't doing a thing. She's just sitting there. Aren't you going to tell her something? And this is what Jesus says in verse 41 and 42. He says, Martha, Martha, the Lord answered, you are worried and upset about many things, but few things are needed, or indeed only one. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her. In this statement, Jesus is saying what he thinks is the most important thing for you and me. More than anything else that we need to do on a daily basis, he is saying there's one thing. And this one thing is the best thing because it will never be taken away. You see, Mary understood that if she set the table, eventually it'd get taken down. If she swept the floor, eventually it would get dirty again. And she also understood that there's one thing that can never be taken away, and that is an encounter with the living God who loves you before any preparations. And I believe that this story is incredibly helpful for you and me because I don't know about you, but I had a phone in 5th grade, okay? I have literally been removed from the ability to be bored or to do nothing. I mean, think about it. When is the last time that you actually did nothing? Nothing. Okay, a lot. That's impressive. Absolutely nothing. Because think about it. We have an ability to distract ourselves. We have an ability to look at things. We've got Xboxes, PS5s, Nintendo Switches. We have Instagram, Snapchat, Spotify, YouTube. That one's tough for me. TikTok. We have endless things. Netflix. But also, we have things like Martha has. Martha was like, I have good things that distract me. So maybe you guys have vocab quizzes coming up, or math problems that you need to do, or chores that need to be done around the house. You see, here's the thing. Martha wasn't doing something extremely wrong. It's not like she was like, Jesus, take a seat. I'm going to go binge Netflix and eat a gallon of ice cream. That's not what she did. But she wasn't doing what was best, what was needed. She wasn't doing something wrong, but she wasn't doing the best thing that she could do. In fact, she was doing something far less important than being with Jesus. And so here's my question to you. You guys ready? Here's my question. What is one time in your day? What is that moment in your day that is free? What is that free moment in your day? Maybe you're on your way to school and you got your headphones in and you're in the back seat. What would it look like to turn on a worship song, to remove distraction, and give attention to Jesus? Or what would it look like if you had just gotten home from practice and you are absolutely exhausted, but you take a moment to remove distraction and give attention to Jesus? Or your parents still make you go to bed early and you're never tired, ever. So you get into bed and you're wide awake. What if you take that time to remove distraction and give attention to Jesus? You see, this is something that's very simple, but also extremely powerful. And here it is. It's very simple, and it's simple for a few reasons. We look at going to church and living this Christian life as something we need to do for Jesus. But in reality, the Christian life is something we do with him. And so prayer is very simply giving your attention to Jesus. So I have a little story. When I was in fourth grade, 9 years old, I went to a very tiny school. I had 11 people in my grade. 11. Yes, crazy. But we would have like school-wide chapels, and the teacher was very smart, and so she would make me sit in the very back row away from everyone because I was very distracting, okay? So I'm in the back row of this massive Baptist church all by myself, and everyone else is like 30 rows away. And I'm sitting here, and I remember to this day that there was an odd, like, stillness. I looked around at this church, and I was reminded that God was there. And so I'm sitting there listening to the pastor talk to these students, and I'm by myself, and I'm alone, and it's quiet. And I have this just strange feeling of, like, excitement and, like, wonder. And I had one of those thoughts. You guys know those thoughts that are just, like, loud? Like, you can tell, like, oh, I don't know why I just thought that, but that was the only thought I just thought. And what it was, I was looking at this pastor talking to these students, and I heard in my head, you're going to do that one day. And after that moment, absolutely nothing changed. Nothing. I lived my life completely normal until I was in college, okay? This is 13 years later, and I'm in college, and I'm almost done, and I think I want to be a dentist, okay? I'm studying to become a dentist. I'm working in dental offices, and I'm like, this is not it. I don't know why I thought this was it, but this is not it. And I'm like, I had no idea what to do. So I did the only thing that I thought was reasonable. This was like my last-ditch effort of like, what the heck am I going to do with my life? And so I get on my own, and I removed distraction, and I just gave my attention to Jesus. And I was like, what am I supposed to do, God? And in that moment, that memory of 13 years ago hit me. I hadn't thought it since that moment, and it hit me. And this is what I'm trying to say to you guys, is that some things feel like not that important, or something that maybe might not be super memorable. But when we make a daily decision to place our thoughts on Jesus, this is a life-changing decision that we are making every single day. We are encountering a God who is willing and able to have our attention. And so what I want to invite you guys to for this week is to just take one moment. It doesn't have to be an hour. It doesn't have to be 5 minutes. Take a moment and just think about Jesus. And we're actually going to do this right now. So I'm going to have Shane come up, and we're just going to take a little bit of time to practice this. This is called a spiritual practice. It's something that maybe we don't do every day, but we're going to take some time to do it. So Shane, come on up and just lead us through this.